For thousands of years, the story of Abraham has been told and retold. We hear about Sarah, the mother of Isaac, and Hagar, the mother of Ishmael. But what if I told you there was another woman, hidden in the shadows, nearly erased from history, who played a crucial role in fulfilling God's promise, yet her name is barely spoken today? Who was Keturah, Abraham's forgotten wife? Why has history nearly erased her? And most importantly, who are her real descendants? Could they have shaped history in ways we've overlooked? Though Keturah is briefly mentioned in Scripture, her impact extends far beyond a passing reference. She bore Abraham 6 sons, who would go on to establish powerful tribes that influenced trade, culture, and religious history. Today we uncover the truth about Abraham's forgotten wife and reveal how her children shaped the ancient world. Join us as we uncover biblical texts, historical records, and theological insights to bring Keturah's legacy to light. If you love exploring hidden stories of the Bible, be sure to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you never miss future content. And if you know someone who would enjoy this, send it their way. The story of Abraham is one of faith, covenant, and divine promise. He is a central figure in the history of 3 major world religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. His journey, from leaving his homeland to receiving God's promise of countless descendants, is one of the most compelling narratives in the Bible. However, beyond the well-known figures of Sarah and Hagar, there exists another chapter, one often forgotten by history. After the death of Sarah, Abraham took another wife, Keturah. Unlike Sarah, who was the matriarch of the covenant line through Isaac, or Hagar, whose son Ishmael would also become a great nation, Keturah's role remains largely unexplored in mainstream biblical teachings. Yet she is Abraham's forgotten wife, and through her nations were born, fulfilling God's promise to make Abraham the father of many nations. The significance of her children and their descendants provides a crucial yet often overlooked perspective on the full extent of Abraham's legacy. Keturah's story is shrouded in mystery, with the Bible offering only a glimpse into her role. Was she of Canaanite, Arabian, or even Egyptian origin? Was she a concubine elevated to the status of wife? Or had she been in Abraham's life long before Sarah's passing? The biblical text does not provide direct answers, leaving room for interpretation, speculation, and historical inquiry. What we do know is that she bore 6 sons to Abraham: Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, each of whom went on to establish tribes and nations of their own. Beyond her immediate role as Abraham's wife, Keturah's lineage holds profound implications for biblical history. The Midianites, one of the most prominent groups descending from her, would play a major role in future biblical narratives, particularly in the life of Moses. Additionally, other descendants of Keturah are believed to have spread across Arabia and other parts of the ancient Near East, influencing cultures, economies, and religious traditions. To fully understand Keturah's impact, we must explore not only the biblical text but also historical interpretations, theological discussions, and the legacy of the nations she bore. Her existence raises fascinating questions about the broader fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. If Isaac was the chosen heir of the covenant, where do Keturah's children fit into the grand divine plan? How do their nations reflect God's unfolding design for humanity? And why has Keturah's story remained so obscure in comparison to Sarah and Hagar? In recovering the lost story of Keturah, we gain a more complete picture of Abraham's true influence. Her children, like Ishmael's, were blessed and spread out to form their own nations, showing that Abraham's impact extended far beyond the Israelite lineage. Keturah's presence reminds us that history often overlooks key figures whose contributions were vital in shaping the world. By revisiting her story, we acknowledge the fullness of Abraham's descendants and the intricate web of divine purpose that stretched far beyond the borders of Canaan. The identity of Keturah has long been a subject of debate among scholars, theologians, and historians. Unlike Sarah and Hagar, who are well documented in biblical narratives, Keturah remains an enigmatic figure with little background information provided in the scriptures. Her name is first mentioned in Genesis, chapter 25, verse 1, where she is identified as Abraham's wife, yet later, in 1 Chronicles, chapter 1, verse 32, She is referred to as a concubine. This discrepancy has led to differing interpretations regarding her role and status in Abraham's life. Some Jewish traditions and medieval commentators, such as Rashi, suggest that Keturah and Hagar might have been the same person. Hagar, the Egyptian handmaid of Sarah, who bore Ishmael. This interpretation is based on the belief that after Sarah's passing, Hagar was restored to Abraham under the new name Keturah, which means fragrance or incense, symbolizing her renewed status and righteousness. Proponents of this theory argue that Keturah's presence represents a redemption arc for Hagar, as she is brought back into Abraham's household with a new elevated role. However, this interpretation is not universally accepted. Many biblical scholars contend that Keturah and Hagar were distinct individuals, given that the scriptures explicitly introduce Keturah as a wife without any direct indication that she is Hagar. Furthermore, Genesis chapter 21 verse 14 describes Abraham sending Hagar and Ishmael away permanently, making it unlikely that she would later return as Keturah. Additionally, the genealogies of Keturah's sons show no immediate connection to Ishmael, further reinforcing the notion that Keturah was a separate person. The distinction between concubine and wife in ancient times is another point of contention. In some interpretations, concubines were secondary wives, often of lower status than the primary wife, but still recognized within the family structure. Some biblical translations refer to Keturah as a concubine, which might imply a lesser status than Sarah, yet she is also explicitly called a wife, reinforcing her legitimate place in Abraham's household. This dual designation suggests that while she may not have held the same level of authority as Sarah, she was still considered an important figure in Abraham's life. Keturah's presence in Abraham's later years suggests that his capacity for fatherhood did not end with Sarah or Ishmael. Despite being advanced in age, Abraham continued to fulfill God's promise of multiplying his offspring through Keturah. Her 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, were blessed and became progenitors of various tribes, expanding Abraham's lineage across the ancient world. The fact that Abraham took another wife after Sarah's death raises important theological questions. Was Keturah introduced into his life solely to expand his bloodline, or did she hold a deeper spiritual significance? Some scholars propose that her presence represents the extension of divine blessings beyond the direct covenant line of Isaac. While Isaac remained the heir of the covenant, Keturah's children were also recipients of Abraham's blessings, reflecting the broader scope of God's plan for humanity. Ultimately, regardless of her exact origins, Keturah played a vital role in Abraham's legacy. She ensured that his lineage extended far beyond Isaac and Ishmael, influencing the nations and peoples of the ancient Near East. Her story, though often overlooked, serves as a reminder that biblical history is rich with figures whose impact, though less prominent, was essential in shaping the world. By exploring Keturah's identity and her relationship with Abraham, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of biblical genealogy and the vast reach of God's promises. Keturah bore 6 sons to Abraham: Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Each of these sons went on to form their own tribes, influencing the ancient Near East in ways both subtle and profound. These 6 sons became the forefathers of various nomadic and settled peoples, many of whom played significant roles in the economic, military, and cultural developments of the region. Though Isaac was the child of promise, Keturah's children were not forgotten by divine providence. Abraham provided for them, granting them gifts and sending them eastward, away from Isaac, ensuring their own separate destinies among the nations. The act of sending Keturah's sons eastward is significant. It suggests that while they were not the chosen heirs of the covenant, they were still considered important enough to receive inheritance and blessings. This migration eastward places them in proximity to Arabia, Mesopotamia, and possibly even parts of India, where their influence could have spread further than we typically assume. Jokshan, one of Keturah's sons, fathered Sheba and Dedan. These names are significant as they appear in various biblical texts, often associated with trade and wealth. The kingdom of Sheba, famous for its riches and wisdom, may trace its origins to this lineage. The Descendants, known for their commercial interactions with neighboring civilizations, played a role in ancient trade networks, connecting the Arabian Peninsula to Mesopotamia and beyond. Of all Keturah's sons, one lineage stood out the most: the Midianites. This nation would go on to intertwine with Israel's destiny, shaping biblical history in unexpected ways. It was among them that Moses found refuge, and it was Jethro, a Midianite priest, who would teach Moses how to lead God's people. Could it be that Keturah's descendants influenced Israel's leadership more than we ever realized? Yet the Midianites would also later clash with Israel, showing how Keturah's line was deeply entangled in biblical prophecy. The Midianites were known for their trade, military strength, and religious practices, some of which influenced or opposed Israelite traditions. Shua, another son, is believed to have founded a tribe known as the Shuhites, from whom Bildad, one of Job's friends, may have descended. This connection highlights Keturah's broader influence on biblical figures beyond Abraham's immediate line through Isaac. Ultimately, the descendants of Keturah shaped significant aspects of the ancient world, contributing to commerce, warfare, and religious development. Though they were sent away from Isaac's inheritance, they were not excluded from the broader narrative of God's plan, illustrating the complexity and vast reach of Abraham's lineage. Among Keturah's children, Midian is the most prominent. The Midianites played a significant role in biblical history, often interacting with the Israelites. It was to the land of Midian that Moses fled after killing an Egyptian, and there he encountered Jethro, a priest of Midian, whose daughter Zipporah became Moses' wife. The Midianites were a powerful nomadic people, dwelling in the deserts and engaging in trade, warfare, and alliances throughout biblical times. They were known for their vast wealth and commerce, as well as their religious practices, which sometimes conflicted with Israelite beliefs. The story of Balaam, the prophet hired by the Midianite king Balak to curse Israel, is one of the notable interactions between the two nations. Though often at odds with the Israelites, the Midianites were also instrumental in biblical history, particularly through Jethro, who provided Moses with wisdom and guidance in governing the Israelites. The other sons of Keturah, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Ishbak, and Shua, also established influential tribes. Jokshan fathered Sheba and Dedan, linking him to the famed Arabian trade routes and possibly the kingdom of Sheba, which later became renowned for its wealth and wisdom. Some speculate that the famous Queen of Sheba, who visited King Solomon, may have been descended from this line. Sheba became associated with vast wealth, exotic spices, and a legendary kingdom that traded with the Israelites, Egyptians, and other major civilizations. Descendants, another influential group, played a crucial role in Arabian trade networks, connecting the Near East with Africa and India. Their wealth came from trading valuable goods like incense, myrrh, and gold, solidifying their importance in the ancient world. Shua's descendants may have been linked to the Shuhite people, among whom was Bildad, one of Job's friends. His presence in the story of Job suggests that Keturah's descendants had a role in the broader spiritual and philosophical traditions of the ancient world. These tribes contributed to the economic, cultural, and political fabric of the Near East, influencing history in ways that often go unnoticed. Through Keturah's offspring, Abraham's legacy extended far beyond Canaan, shaping civilizations, cultures, and religious developments that would persist for centuries. Keturah's brief mention in Scripture does not diminish her role in Abraham's story. While Isaac was the child through whom God's covenant would be fulfilled, the children of Keturah were also part of the divine plan. Through them, the promise to Abraham that he would be the father of many nations came to fruition. These sons became the forebears of many Semitic and Arabian tribes, expanding Abraham's lineage far beyond the land of Canaan. Keturah's sons, though not considered part of the covenant lineage, were blessed and played their own roles in history. The Bible's emphasis on Isaac does not negate the broader significance of Keturah's offspring. Abraham's story is not just about one chosen line. It is about a multiplication of nations, each fulfilling a different aspect of God's promise. While Isaac's lineage carried the covenant, Keturah's descendants helped shape the civilizations, cultures, and trade networks that influenced the biblical world. Abraham, known as the father of faith, extended his lineage through Keturah's children in a way that demonstrated God's design for diversity among nations. These descendants, while not part of the direct messianic lineage, were integral in fulfilling God's plan for the spread of Abraham's heritage. The expansion of these tribes into Arabia, Mesopotamia, and beyond suggests a wider divine orchestration, ensuring that Abraham's name would be great across the earth. Additionally, Keturah's role highlights an important theological theme. God's blessings are not limited to one group but are meant to extend throughout humanity. Her children's presence in the biblical narrative suggests that while Isaac was the heir of the covenant, Keturah's descendants were not cast away, but instead given their own purpose. This aligns with the biblical principle that God's providence includes all peoples and nations, even those outside the direct line of Israel. Ultimately, Keturah's story serves as a testament to the expansive nature of God's promises. She stands as a figure whose influence, though often overlooked, was essential in shaping the ancient world. By recognizing Keturah's place in Abraham's life, we gain a deeper understanding of the intricate and far-reaching fulfillment of God's covenant, which extended beyond Israel to the many nations that arose from Abraham's seed. The existence of Keturah's descendants raises profound theological reflections on God's unfolding plan for humanity. The Bible frequently emphasizes Isaac as the chosen heir, the one through whom the covenant would be fulfilled. However, this does not negate the significance of Abraham's other offspring. Instead, the presence of Keturah's children, alongside Ishmael, demonstrates the broader scope of divine providence. The promise made to Abraham was that he would be the father of many nations, not just one. And the spread of his lineage across various regions confirms that this divine declaration was not limited to Isaac's line alone. Theologically, Keturah's descendants highlight the inclusive nature of God's blessings. While the covenant with Israel was specific and unique, it was not exclusive in terms of God's broader work in the world. Just as Ishmael was promised to become a great nation, Genesis chapter 17 verse 20, the children of Keturah also played their roles in the divine plan. Their presence in biblical history suggests that God's purposes extend beyond a single chosen lineage, and that his blessings and sovereignty encompass all nations. The Bible frequently presents a dual narrative, one of a specific, chosen covenant people, Israel, and one of a broader, unfolding divine plan for the nations. Keturah's children represent the latter, demonstrating that God's reach is not confined to a single group, but spans across multiple ethnicities and territories. From a theological perspective, this also foreshadows the later message of inclusion found in the New Testament, where the gospel extends beyond the Jewish people to the Gentiles. Abraham's descendants through Keturah, though outside the chosen covenant line, still contribute to the fulfillment of God's promises and serve as a precursor to the later expansion of divine salvation to all peoples. Ultimately, the story of Keturah's offspring reinforces a critical theme in biblical theology. While God establishes covenants with specific individuals and nations, his overarching plan embraces the entirety of humanity. The inclusion of Keturah's children in Abraham's blessing serves as a reminder that God's providence is far-reaching, extending his influence through unexpected and often overlooked lineages, all contributing to the greater divine tapestry of history. Despite her relative obscurity, Keturah's legacy endures. Today, scholars and theologians continue to explore the historical and cultural impact of her descendants, as new discoveries and interpretations shed light on the widespread influence of her lineage. Keturah's children are believed to have played crucial roles in shaping the identities of various Middle Eastern and African groups, many of whom trace their ancestry back to her. Recognizing her as a matriarch of ancient tribes, some historical records suggest that the Midianites, Sheba and Dedan, descendants of Keturah's sons, had extensive interactions with the Israelites, Egyptians, and early Arabian cultures. These groups contributed to commerce, religious practices, and regional conflicts, demonstrating that Keturah's offspring were not merely secondary figures in biblical history, but active participants in the shaping of civilizations. Archaeological and genetic research has further deepened discussions on Keturah's legacy. Some anthropological studies suggest that the tribes descending from her may have merged with other Semitic and Arabian groups, influencing modern ethnic identities in the Middle East and parts of Africa. While definitive evidence remains elusive, the broad migration and settlement patterns of Abraham's descendants indicate that Keturah's lineage played a substantial role in the ancient world. Additionally, Keturah's presence in the biblical narrative has sparked renewed theological discussions on the broader inclusivity of God's plan. Some scholars argue that her children's integration into different nations aligns with the idea that God's blessings were not confined to Israel alone but extended across all peoples. This concept resonates strongly with later biblical themes, particularly in the New Testament, where the expansion of God's covenant beyond Israel becomes a central message. By revisiting her story, we gain a richer understanding of Abraham's heritage and appreciate the vast scope of his descendants' influence on history and theology. The story of Keturah serves as a reminder that biblical history is more intricate than we often perceive. Her children may not have been the chosen heirs, but they were far from forgotten. They played an essential role in shaping the ancient world, leaving an enduring mark on history. By reclaiming Keturah's place in Abraham's story, we acknowledge the fullness of God's promise and the complexity of his divine plan, one that extends beyond a single lineage to encompass the broader human experience. Recognizing Keturah and her descendants challenges us to embrace a more inclusive view of biblical history, seeing beyond the well-known figures to the often overlooked contributors to God's unfolding plan. For centuries, Keturah's story lay buried, overlooked, and forgotten. But not anymore. She was never just a footnote in Abraham's story. She was a mother of nations, a woman whose legacy still echoes through time. For too long, history silenced her descendants. But today, their voices rise again, stronger, louder, and undeniable. Their story will never be forgotten. By reclaiming her place in Abraham's legacy, we gain a deeper appreciation for the richness of biblical history and the expansive reach of God's promises. If this exploration of Keturah's forgotten legacy has intrigued you, we invite you to be part of the conversation. Like this video if you found it insightful. And don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Have you encountered references to Keturah in your studies? Do you think her descendants played an even greater role than what has been traditionally acknowledged? Subscribe now to uncover more hidden gems from biblical history. If you found this eye-opening, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Together, let's bring these lost stories back to life. Thank you for watching, and we appreciate your support in bringing deeper awareness to these incredible yet often untold stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep seeking truth.